Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see all of our hospitality dual credit instructors. With us today is Chef Bricker for our dual credit discipline dialogue. Just to introduce myself, my name is Dr. Mark Schneider. I am the AVP of K-14 Academic Initiatives and Support for Ivy Tech. It's a long and fancy title that basically just means I help with the programming side of dual credit, not so much the enrollment and marketing, but just, pathways to completion, things along those lines. But joining me today is our academic advisory committee member, Chef Bricker. Jeff, if you want to take a second, why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Chef Jeff Bricker. I serve as department chair at the Indianapolis campus of Hospitality Administration. I also serve as a statewide chair of our curriculum committee. So there are 6 campuses across the state that offer this program, and you're obviously in one of those service areas, one of those campuses. And many of you I've engaged with either because you're part of our dual credit contract system here, or you've come to Skills USA and competed, or ProStart or something. So we've had connections. So welcome, everyone. Glad to spend this time with you.
Yes, we're very happy for everyone to be here today. We'll just start off with kind of a basic but very important talking point here with Chef Bricker. What are some of the best practices, things that you've seen either utilized on campus with your own classes or other Ivy Tech classes, or some best practices that you've seen at some dual credit sites that you think everyone should be well aware of to potentially use?
Yeah, I've got a list of things to share and then welcome feedback from everyone. One of the more common things that happens with the syllabus template, and a little bit later in the agenda, we're going to share a link with you to the syllabi folder. We've created, when you start out the process of dual credit, I'll back up a moment, you do onboarding with the chair in your service area closest to your campus. And in that onboarding, you learn about the learning objectives of the courses you're teaching, dual credit, of course. But we also provide access to a dual credit syllabus template. And the purpose for that is to make sure that the learning objectives that you are teaching dual credit for totally align. And actually, our accrediting body requires that, the campus class and the dual credit class mirror in terms of the syllabi. So to make that simple, we just created the template and said, okay, here is all the required information to meet the standard for Ivy Tech and also for our accrediting body. But we also then just put in red the areas you change. So you just change out the limited items on the syllabus template that would have your name, your specific school, your specific information. But one of the common areas that's overlooked there is the grading scale. The hospitality grading scale is different than the traditional 90, 80, 70, 60. And so it's important that you include the Ivy Tech grading scale. If you want to add your grading scale as well and have them in 2 tables side by side on that syllabus, it's a good idea to do that, because that's full transparency to your students that they're going to be receiving a grade at the high school level based on your school grading scale, but they're going to be receiving on their Ivy Tech transcript perhaps a different grade because we have a different grading scale. And that could lead to some confusion if they say, well, I've got a B on my high school transcript, but it was a C on the Ivy Tech transcript. That would explain the difference. It's because there's 2 different grading scales. So we just ask that on the syllabus template, you include the Ivy Tech one that's required because the student has to understand that's how their grade will be determined, but then include also your high school one, which is probably more that 90, 80, 70, 60. That just reduces any confusion right from the beginning of the term with the students. And then later they're not tapping on your door saying, why is my Ivy Tech transcript grade different than my high school transcript? So let's kind of address that initially. The other thing that I've noticed in terms of best practice is utilization of the course resources. We provide access to our Canvas-based, we call it Ivy Learning Management System. And through your program chair that you work with on your campus, they can give you access to those shells. If you don't have access, reach out to me. I'm happy to add you to it. We develop K-14 specific shells in Canvas for every one of the dual credit classes. And the idea behind that is, again, to give you a template, give you access to all of the course resources that we use on campus, because the dual credit class is supposed to mirror what happens on campus. And so the idea is, if we have PowerPoints, if we have specific assessments, if we have learning activities or projects built into those classes, the more you could utilize those, one, it's going to make your job a little easier because that's already been done for you and you could just download it and use it. But also it makes sure that we have alignment and making sure the students are learning those objectives and that it is truly assessed. And that's really an important feature for us from an accreditation standpoint and quality standpoint. We want to make sure the students get the basic knowledge sets and practical skills, and that that's assessed at that level so that they're truly ready to progress if they hopefully decide to continue on at Ivy Tech to complete a credential after high school. So we encourage you to use those Canvas shells. Some schools, you know, I've worked with say, we don't use Canvas, that's fine. If you use Google Classroom or some other platform, you can download the resources from there and upload them into Google Classroom. So whether they're a PowerPoint or a test, a quiz, a project, all of those things you can download and then upload to whatever platform you're using for learning management. So hopefully you're utilizing that. The other thing that I found interesting, I was a few years back working with Nikki Heflin at Westfield High School. Some of you know Nikki, great teacher there. And in the principals level, next level pathway, HOSP 101, 102, Nikki really kind of merged the curriculum to make sure that she's teaching both at the same time. And you do that anyway when you think about it. When you take students in the lab kitchen, you're obviously making sure that they're operating safely and with sanitation standards. And so to really align those learning objectives and say, for example, the day I visited her class, they were doing soups in the kitchen and she was teaching HACCP principles from ServSafe. And she was talking to the students about two-stage cooling. And so they actually did it. So they were able to take the concept and apply it to the soups that they created that day. And they were monitoring the time and temperature and recording it as they were taking the soups through the two-stage cooling, and got them down to 70 degrees and then put them in the refrigerator to get them down to 41 degrees in the next couple of hours. So throughout her curriculum, Nikki's done a great job of weaving together those learning objectives. Often when teachers start out with a new group of students and they're doing principles in that basic level, they think, well, I've got to do ServSafe first before we can get in the kitchen. And you really can actually do them simultaneously. And Nikki really found a great way to blend the curriculum to do that. So they could be learning about personal hygiene, and yes, they could be learning knife skills at the same time. And the students are going to learn better. They're going to have greater retention. We feel like if they're more actively engaged, and you know, it's difficult if they're just sitting through lectures and videos and PowerPoints for ServSafe, but if that's happening in the kitchen in a hands-on environment and they can see personal hygiene and food safety integrated into the lab experience, it's going to be more meaningful to them. It's going to be more concrete and credible. We feel like it's going to stick from a learning retention standpoint. It also just makes it more fun for the students. They want to be doing something more active, you know. They can't wait to get in the kitchen, and often they're bored with the classroom stuff. So any way you can align those and do that. We did that on campus here, actually. We don't even use our classrooms for the lab classes. They do that right in the kitchen. So they're getting theory built in with the lab experiences. And we think that that's more engaging. The other way you can do that is with concentrator A, nutrition, and then concentrator B, whether you're doing baking for intro to baking or 103 soup stocks and sauces. You can easily align those. Some schools look at it kind of linear to say, well, I need to do concentrator A with nutrition in one semester or even 1 year, which would be kind of dreadful to drag that out for a whole year. But if you align it, let's say you mix that up with baking and now you're doing healthful variations on baking formulas, you can actually teach nutrition alongside of intro to baking. Integrated with it, you can also teach it alongside of either basic food theory and skills or soup stocks and sauces. So you could have healthy variations of soups, of dishes, of sauces, different methods for making a healthier version of a dish. And so you can teach those concepts of nutrition alongside of the lab-based classes. And again, that's more engaging for the students as opposed to that kind of traditional lecture environment where we know they're going to get quickly bored. So the other thing I'll mention about best practices is the integration of the finished products coming out of your lab classes with your experiential learning. Many of you operate cafes, restaurants, do catering. And I've talked to a lot of teachers who sometimes view those in somewhat silos to say, you know, I teach this to meet the learning objective in basic foods or intro to baking, but over here I'm doing this catering, it's a different menu. What if your cafe or your catering that menu was comprised of dishes that are really finished goods that you're teaching in the lab? So if you're teaching sauteing, you're sauteing chicken breast, why not put that sauteed chicken breast on the menu in the cafe, or make that menu item for catering? In doing that, you align those activities. So now your experiential learning aligns to the learning objectives, and you're really kind of killing 2 or 3 birds with a stone, right? Instead of having separate menus to manage and separate ingredient pools to order and all that sort of thing. Streamlining it's going to save you time. It's going to save you resources. And I think it reinforces those learning objectives for the students. If they have the opportunity to do multiples of that instead of one trial in the lab kitchen, if they're doing it multiple times in the cafe for returning customers or repeat customers, or maybe they're doing it in a catering environment where they're plating up that sauteed chicken breast for a group of 50 for a meeting at the school or something. That's just a great way to say for the students, this is how you apply this technique or cooking method, but also to the community and the stakeholders of those experiential learning venues. You're saying this is what they're learning. This is what they're learning in the lab. You literally get to taste the fruits of their work. It's not something that we did outside of the learning environment. It's integrated with it. And I just think that's really a great best practice. Hopefully it makes your life a little easier too when it comes to ordering and sourcing all these ingredients. That's about it, what I have on best practices. Any questions or thoughts about that and experiences maybe you've had that you would like to share? We want to make this more of a dialogue and not a monologue, so please jump in if you have thoughts or concerns about anything that we talk about too.
While everyone does consider that and ponder it, we do, like I said, we do encourage as many questions in a dialogue as possible. But one thing we have been asking all of our program chairs in these sessions is to share any professional development opportunities with our dual credit instructors that might be coming up over the horizon here, especially over the summer. You know, sometimes there tends to be, especially in the CTE space, third-party providers that can do different types of professional development. Oftentimes the college, depending on the program, also provides professional development for our dual credit instructors, as they would for our program chairs and our adjunct faculty and any other faculty members. So all that in mind, is there anything out there for the people on this call and all of our hospitality dual credit instructors to take advantage of coming up?
Yeah, there's actually a few things, Mark. One I would suggest is in your community, if you have access to a chapter of the American Culinary Federation, they do monthly meetings, and they're designed for networking and education. And so professional development's a great opportunity for you. Students are always welcome to come to those meetings. Here in the Central Indiana region, I know May 13th, they're going to Smoking Goose to do a tour and do a kind of charcuterie building and stuff with Chef Chris Ely there. So every month in the Central Indiana region, that's happening. There's a Northwest chapter of the ACF as well. South Bend, you know, there's different chapters of the ACF around the state, and they're our accrediting body, one of them. And so it's great to attend those monthly meetings at the chapter nearest you. The other one I'll mention is ProStart. So some of you have taken advantage in prior years, their summer institute program for teachers. We've hosted a number of those here on this campus. We're not scheduled to do any this summer, but all around the country, they have ProStart Summer Institute options available for PD for teachers. And often there's grants through the NRAEF to pay for that. It may be a little late in the cycle, but you could still check. If you visit the NRAEF website and look at ProStart, specifically that section of the site, you can see professional development opportunities for teachers there. The last one I'll mention, we're actually hosting here on July 23rd, a collaboration with Allison Rieger McIntyre of ProStart Indiana. Allison is putting together a ProStart PD Day on July 23rd. It'll be held here at the Indy Ivy Tech campus. And we're going to partner with her to make that a dual credit PD Day as well. And Chef Tom England from our faculty is going to be presenting a demo on sous vide cooking. And that's kind of will lead us into our hot topic, but we'll talk more about that when we get to that. But it'll be a demo that'll be done live here, and it'll be recorded as well, and we'll post it for everyone in the hot topic of a PD shell. So we have information there now, but we'll post the video once that demo happens. So hopefully you can attend. If you want to mark your calendar and watch your email, Allison will be sending out information about that PD Day for ProStart teachers. You may not be a ProStart teacher, you're still welcome to come. We'll make sure you get the invitation, because even if you don't use the ProStart curriculum, if you're using something other than Foundations, that's fine. You could still come because it's an Ivy Tech PD Day for dual credits. So you're welcome to attend. And we hope to see you at that.
Yes, please share information on that.
Okay. Yep, happy to do so.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to check my calendar. I might try to check it out. I always try to go to all the different events as it allows, since I help oversee like whatever 50 some disciplines. So sometimes when I get a question about something, I can at least be halfway knowledgeable with the answer instead of just repeating what curriculog says or something like that. So
Mark will have you doing sous vide by the end of it, I'm telling
yeah,
you.
I don't know what that means, but but it sounds exciting to me.
Okay.
So, I make a mean hamburger helper, but anything I can go beyond that, my wife would really appreciate. So
Nice. The date's July 23rd. It's a Tuesday. Yeah.
So if no one has any other questions, do want to ask Chef Bricker here if there are any kind of hot topics or developments in the program in and of itself. I think this year, over our 500 plus courses that we offer throughout all of Ivy Tech, through all of our different disciplines, we have 60 courses or so that are having new objectives added or removed, just updates to the curriculum itself. So is there anything along those lines that maybe the dual credit instructors on the call should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do the professional development shell that's coming soon from Ivy Tech, you'll see in there a section called Hot Topic. And the hot topic this year for us is about sous vide. So what happened through the American Culinary Federation's Ed Foundation, that's one of our accrediting bodies, they updated their required knowledge and competency standards to include sous vide as one of the basic cooking methods that should be taught. And we teach those cooking methods in our HOSP 102, Basic Food Theory and Skills. So sous vide is now a learning objective. You'll see that on the updated learning objectives for HOSP 102. And so in the hot topics section of that PD module coming soon to you, you'll see great resources. There's videos, there's documents, there's information, demos on sous vide cooking as a cooking method, because starting the fall in the academic year of 24-25, you'll be required to integrate sous vide into your 102 learning objectives in that foundations level of NLPS. And you'll find out that it's not as daunting as it may seem. Sometimes people see the term, it's a French term, it means under vacuum, by the way, Mark, so you're on board with this, but it's cooking food at a lower temperature for a longer period of time in a water bath. But the sous vide aspect of it, often people confuse it with ROP, or reduced oxygen packaging, and that's certainly more involved. This is not as involved. So it's something that can be done very simply with not a lot of expensive equipment at all. So sometimes people get nervous, like, oh, am I going to have to invest in a bunch of equipment? You can technically do sous vide, without ROP. You can do sous vide with a Ziploc bag and a water bath which could be just a Cambro or any kind of a bus tub even with water in it. And you could buy a simple thermal circulator on Amazon for less than $100. So it's something that just heats the water and circulates it. And you can literally do sous vide. In fact, we have a video in the Hot Topic section of the PD Shell of Thomas Keller demonstrating how to do sous vide in a Ziploc bag for like home cooks. It's very, very simple. So please don't feel overwhelmed by the concept like, oh no, I have to teach sous vide now. What is that even? Well, the PD module with Hot Topic, we define it. We give you all the information and the resources there about sous vide and give you suggestions on even a recipe that we're doing in our basic foods class. It's just a basic pork tenderloin that you can do sous vide in a Ziploc bag with a thermal circulator. So it's just the basic concepts of it. It's not that advanced. I mean, you're not required to, suddenly go out and get a variance from the health department. You don't need that to do the level of it that we're doing for teaching. So please don't be freaked out by that. Any questions or thoughts about that on the surface? I know you haven't seen the material yet, but. No, Pete's happy. Okay. Welcome, Heather. We have our vice chair of our curriculum committee, Chef Heather Peer from the Muncie campus, joining us here too. So there she is. Yay. Okay. So that's Hot Topic. That's kind of the hot thing. Many of you have heard about it. You've seen it. Your students are talking about it. It's been prevalent for a long time, out in society and in the culinary world, it's been around. And now finally, we're just making sure that we introduce sous vide as a cooking method here, and we're addressing it, exposing students to that as a cooking method.
Can you recommend a cheap sous vide?
Yeah,
machine?
actually, yep. There's if you just look up on Amazon, there's a whole bunch of them there. I've seen them anywhere from $80 to $100. I mean, you don't have to, there's real expensive ones. You don't have to do that. But if you haven't filed your Perkins grant request yet for next year, you might want to pop that in, right? You may want to get one of those bigger units or something if you wanted to.
Sure. Or just a smaller one that's affordable for demo.
Exactly. And that's really all you need. That's all we're doing in our basic foods class.
Yep. Yep.
Keep it simple.
Okay, well, we have gone through all of our kind of template talking points that we worked on beforehand. So the last part here is just general Q&A. So we will open it up to any questions that anyone might have. While you are thinking of potential questions, want to put in the chat again the link to the Google form. Fill that out. You'll get a professional growth point when we're done with all these sessions in May. And then just once again, another friendly reminder that all of your high school students are eligible for free summer classes this summer. That includes tuition, books, and any consumable fee. So 100% free for high school students this summer. So with that, do we have any questions from the group?
Feel free to unmute and fire away.
I'm in the kitchen teaching, so I don't want you unless you need me to.
Okay.
Well, if we don't have any questions from the group before we exit today, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. And also I want to thank you all for being dual credit instructors. In almost every situation, we have 5,000 dual credit instructors across the state. And in almost every situation, no one is under any obligation to be a dual credit instructor. But high school teachers become dual credit instructors largely out of the goodness of their heart, even though it requires extra time and effort, whether it's submitting a syllabus, doing a site visit, doing the PD modules, all those other things that kind of go with it. It's just an extra responsibility on top of everything else that you have to do as a high school teacher. And so doing, these dual credit offerings says a lot about you and your character, as a person and just doing this for, the betterment of your students. So we really do appreciate that. And it is making a difference in the lives of so many students. So thank you for all of that. So this will be our last call for any questions before we sign off for today. Okay, well, if anyone does have any questions and they would like to ask them on the side, I will put my email address here in the chat. And Chef Bricker, if you could do the same too.
Absolutely.
So that way they can reach out to us if need be at a later time. We're happy to have a conversation, whether it's both of us, one of us, help you connect with, a campus person, anything like that. Just let us know. Your local program chairs that help oversee your dual credit program are usually the best resource to go to. So I'd always recommend reaching out to those individuals first. But sometimes we have these big statewide questions that pop up. Feel free to reach out to us. So with all that being said, thank you very much for joining us today, and have a good rest of your evening and good end of the school year too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.